When loyalty meets betrayal on the hardwood, the echoes last far beyond the final buzzer. Tonight, we're diving deep into a story that ripped through the women's basketball world like wildfire, exposing the raw truth about what happens when professional relationships crumble and former teammates become bitter enemies. This isn't just another game recap or highlight reel. This is about respect, honor, and the invisible bonds that either unite teams or destroy them from within. Picture this scenario. You've spent months grinding alongside someone, sharing bus rides, hotel rooms, early morning practices, and the weight of collective dreams. You've celebrated victories together and nursed defeats as a unit. Then one day, that person vanishes without explanation, leaving behind nothing but questions and wounded pride. Months later, they return to your home court wearing enemy colors, not just to play basketball, but to make a statement. They want to prove something, settle scores, and show everyone who made the wrong choice. The arena that night felt electric with tension you could practically taste. From the moment players stepped onto the court for warm-ups, you could sense this wasn't going to be ordinary basketball. The crowd knew it too. Season ticket holders who'd seen hundreds of games could feel something different crackling in the air. Social media was already buzzing with speculation and old grievances being rehashed. Former teammates eyeing each other across the court like gunfighters in the Old West, each side convinced they held the moral high ground. Basketball has always been a sport where emotions run hot and personal relationships matter as much as athletic ability. When those relationships sour, the fallout can be spectacular and messy. What we witnessed that evening was years of frustration, disappointment, and unresolved conflict finally boiling over in the most public way possible. The scoreboard would tell one story, but the real drama played out in the spaces between possessions, in the stare-downs after made shots, and in the careful words chosen during post-game interviews. The visiting team came prepared for war, not just basketball. Their star player, a veteran with championship aspirations and a chip on her shoulder the size of Mount Rushmore, had circled this date on her calendar the moment the schedule was released. She'd spent weeks preparing mentally and physically for this moment of vindication. Her new teammates rallied around her narrative of being wronged and underappreciated, turning what should have been a routine road game into a personal crusade. Meanwhile, the home team was dealing with their own internal struggles. Key players were nursing injuries that threatened to derail their season before it truly began. Chemistry issues that had been simmering beneath the surface were now exposed under the harsh lights of adversity. Their former teammates' departure had created a leadership vacuum that younger players were still trying to fill. The weight of expectations, both internal and external, was pressing down on shoulders that weren't quite ready to bear such responsibility. From the opening tip, it was clear this game would be different. The intensity was cranked up several notches beyond normal regular season basketball. Every possession felt magnified, every basket celebrated with extra enthusiasm, every defensive stop treated like a small victory in a larger war. The officials found themselves managing not just the game flow, but the simmering emotions, threatening to spill over at any moment. The veteran visitor came out scorching hot, draining difficult shots, and celebrating each bucket with theatrical flair that seemed designed to provoke, rather than simply express joy. She was making a statement with every made basket, every defensive play, every interaction with the crowd. This wasn't about basketball statistics or team success. This was personal vindication played out on the sport's biggest stage, with cameras rolling and social media capturing every moment for posterity. Her former teammates, meanwhile, struggled to find their rhythm against an opponent who knew their tendencies intimately. The visitor had spent months learning their plays, understanding their weaknesses, and developing countermeasures for their strengths. She was using insider knowledge like a weapon, anticipating passes before they were thrown, and disrupting offensive sets with surgical precision. The home crowd, initially excited for the marquee matchup, gradually grew restless as their team fell further behind. Boos began to rain down when the visitor celebrated particularly emphatically, but she seemed to feed off the negative energy rather than be deterred by it. If anything, the hostility made her play with even more determination and edge. As the game progressed, individual battles within the larger contest began to emerge. Young players on the home team, perhaps feeling pressure to defend their turf and prove their worth, started matching the visitors' intensity with chippy play of their own. Stare downs became longer, trash talk more frequent, and the referees found themselves whistling more tightly to maintain control. The injury bug struck at the worst possible moment for the home team. First, their defensive anchor went down with what appeared to be a serious knee injury, leaving the arena in stunned silence as medical staff rushed onto the court. The player's obvious pain and the gravity of the situation momentarily united both teams in concern for her well-being. But once she was helped off the court, the game's competitive fire reignited with even more intensity. Minutes later, another key contributor began limping noticeably, clearly favoring one leg as she tried to continue playing through obvious discomfort. The home team's depth, already questionable, was being tested beyond its limits. Their remaining healthy players were forced to take on expanded roles they weren't prepared for, against an opponent that showed no mercy for their compromised position. The visitors' team, sensing blood in the water, pressed their advantage relentlessly. Their offensive sets became more aggressive, their defensive pressure more suffocating. They were no longer just trying to win a basketball game. They were attempting to deliver a statement victory that would resonate far beyond the final score. Individual performances began to tell the larger story of the evening. The visitor was putting together a masterclass performance, scoring efficiently from all areas of the court while playing lockdown defense. Every successful play was accompanied by celebrations that seemed calculated to maximize impact and generate social media buzz. She was crafting a narrative of redemption and vindication with each passing minute. On the home side, one player stood out as a beacon of resistance against the tide. Despite the mounting odds and dwindling roster, she refused to back down or show defeat. Her effort level never wavered. Her competitive fire never dimmed. She engaged in heated exchanges with the visitors, matching their intensity and refusing to be intimidated by reputation or experience. This player's performance became the emotional center of the home team's resistance. While her teammates struggled with the pressure and circumstances, she elevated her game to match the moment. Her three-point shooting was pure, her defensive effort relentless, and her leadership vocal and inspiring. She was playing not just for statistics or personal accomplishment, but for pride and principle. The contrast between the two sides became increasingly stark as the game wore on. The visitors were playing loose and confident, feeding off their early success and the building momentum. They had the luxury of depth and health, allowing them to maintain energy and focus throughout the contest. Their celebrations became more elaborate, their trash talk more pointed, and their body language more dismissive of their opponents. The home team, meanwhile, was showing the strain of their circumstances. Fatigue was setting in among players, forced to play extended minutes. The emotional weight of seeing teammates injured and their season potentially derailing was visible in slumped shoulders and frustrated expressions. Yet, through it all, their lone warrior continued to fight, refusing to let the game become a complete rout. The final quarter became less about the outcome, which was largely decided, and more about character and pride. The visitor continued to pile on points and theatrical celebrations, seemingly determined to make the victory as emphatic and memorable as possible. Each basket was treated like a championship-winning shot, each defensive stop celebrated like a series-clinching play. But the home team's fighter never stopped competing. Even with the game clearly lost, she continued to attack the basket, drain difficult shots, and play defense with championship-level intensity. Her performance was becoming the kind of moral victory that transcends box scores and win-loss records. She was showing what it means to compete with honor and refuse to surrender, regardless of circumstances. The visitors' emotional celebration at the final buzzer felt almost excessive given the circumstances they had faced. Their opponent was shorthanded, dealing with injuries, and clearly overmatched from early in the contest. Yet they celebrated as if they had just won a championship series, rather than a regular season game against a depleted opponent. The post-game interviews revealed the depth of emotions and unresolved issues surrounding the contest. The visitor spoke about vindication and proving doubters wrong, though the nature of those doubts remained somewhat unclear given the circumstances of the victory. Her comments had an edge that suggested this was about more than basketball, touching on deeper personal and professional grievances. The home team's interviews, by contrast, focused on unity and resilience in the face of adversity. Their words emphasized team chemistry and collective responsibility, painting a picture of a group that remained committed to each other despite external challenges. The difference in messaging and tone was striking, revealing fundamentally different approaches to leadership and team culture. But the real bombshell came several days later, when the home team's standout performer decided to share her perspective on a popular podcast. Her revelations would shift the entire narrative surrounding not just the game, but the broader relationship dynamics that had led to such animosity between former teammates. Speaking with characteristic honesty and directness, she revealed details about the visitor's departure that painted a very different picture than the one that had been publicly portrayed. According to her account, the exit had been handled with shocking unprofessionalism and disregard for basic courtesy between teammates and colleagues. The most damaging revelation centered on communication, or rather, the complete lack thereof. The podcast guest revealed that when the visitor decided to leave the team mid-season, she had failed to send even a simple text message to her former teammates. No explanation, no goodbye, no acknowledgement of shared experiences and relationships, just silence and absence where there should have been basic human decency. This detail reframed the entire narrative around the visitor's departure and subsequent return. What had been portrayed as a professional decision based on basketball considerations now appeared to be something much more personal and petty. The lack of basic communication suggested a level of disrespect that went beyond normal business transactions in professional sports. The podcast revelation explained so much about the emotional undertones of the recent game. The visitors' excessive celebrations and pointed interactions with former teammates now seemed less like competitive fire and more like personal vendetta. She was using basketball success as a weapon to wound people she had previously refused to even acknowledge with basic courtesy. The home team's fighter went on to explain what professional courtesy should look like in such situations. A simple text message expressing gratitude for shared experiences and wishing former teammates well would have gone a long way toward maintaining relationships and respect. Instead, the radio silence had created wounds that clearly remained fresh and painful months later. Her words carried extra weight because of her own performance during the controversial game. While others might have seemed bitter or petty making such revelations, she had proven her character on the court by competing with honor even in defeat. Her criticisms came not from a place of weakness or excuse-making, but from someone who had shown what leadership and integrity look like under pressure. The podcast comments quickly went viral across social media platforms, generating intense debate about professional relationships, team chemistry, and what athletes owe each other beyond contractual obligations. Fans and analysts began taking sides, with some defending the visitor's right to make business decisions without emotional considerations, while others supported the home team's expectations of basic respect and communication. The story resonated beyond basketball circles because it touched on universal themes of workplace relationships and professional courtesy. Many listeners could relate to situations where colleagues had left jobs or changed positions without proper communication or acknowledgement of shared experiences. The basketball context was just the vehicle for exploring deeper questions about how we treat each other in professional settings. Former players and coaches began weighing in with their own perspectives on team dynamics and the unwritten rules that govern professional sports relationships. Most supported the idea that basic communication and respect should be maintained even when business relationships end or change. The visitor's apparent violation of these norms was seen as particularly egregious, given the intimate nature of team sports. The visiting team and their star player remained largely silent in response to the podcast revelations, which only fueled more speculation and discussion. Their lack of response was interpreted by many as an admission of guilt, or at least an inability to defend actions that appeared indefensible when viewed through the lens of basic human decency. Meanwhile, the home team's culture and values were being vindicated by the public response to the controversy. Their emphasis on loyalty, communication, and mutual respect was resonating with fans who appreciated seeing these values prioritized over pure basketball considerations. They were building something bigger than just a sports team. They were creating a model for how professional relationships should be conducted. The injured players from the controversial game were showing remarkable resilience and positive attitudes during their recovery processes. Their teammates rallied around them, demonstrating the kind of collective support that had been notably absent in the visitors' departure from the organization. The contrast in how adversity was being handled spoke volumes about the different cultures being built. As the season continued, the home team's young core continued to develop and mature, shaped by the adversity they had faced during the controversial game and its aftermath. They were learning valuable lessons about competing with integrity, supporting teammates through difficult times, and maintaining dignity regardless of circumstances. The visitors' team, meanwhile, faced questions about whether their victory had been worth the reputational damage caused by the revelations about unprofessional conduct. Their star player's individual success was being overshadowed by character concerns that threatened to define her legacy in ways she likely never intended. The basketball world began to recognize that the real story wasn't about one game or one performance, but about the fundamental values that define successful teams and lasting careers. The home team's fighter had emerged as a voice for integrity and professionalism, while the visitor was increasingly seen as an example of how not to handle professional transitions. Looking forward, the anticipation for future matchups between these teams reached fever pitch among fans and media. The next encounter would be heavily scrutinized not just for basketball action, but for how the interpersonal dynamics would play out after the public airing of grievances and revelations. The home team appeared to have the moral high ground heading into future confrontations, armed with public support and a clear narrative about values and integrity. Their fighter had established herself as a leader worth following, someone who competed with honor and spoke truth regardless of consequences. The visitor faced the challenge of rebuilding her reputation while continuing to perform at a high level on the court. Her basketball skills were never in question, but her character and professionalism had been called into serious doubt by the podcast revelations and subsequent public discussion. The broader women's basketball community was using this controversy as a teaching moment about professionalism, team chemistry, and the importance of treating colleagues with respect regardless of business considerations. Young players were learning valuable lessons about how their actions and decisions could impact their reputations and relationships long after their playing careers ended. The story had evolved far beyond its origins as a simple basketball game into a complex narrative about values, integrity, and the true meaning of success in professional sports. The home team's fighter had proven that moral victories could be more meaningful than anything reflected in a box score, while the visitors' hollow triumph served as a cautionary tale about the costs of prioritizing individual success over basic human decency. As this saga continues to unfold, one thing remains clear: the home team's commitment to values like loyalty, respect, and communication has resonated with fans and observers in ways that transcend basketball. They've built something special that goes beyond wins and losses, creating a culture that attracts supporters and inspires young athletes to compete with integrity. The visitor's path forward remains uncertain, but the damage to her reputation may prove more lasting than any statistical achievements from that controversial game. In the end, how we treat others defines us more than any individual performance. And that lesson has never been clearer than in this unfolding drama that continues to captivate the basketball world. The ripple effects of this controversy extended far beyond the immediate participants, influencing conversations about professional conduct throughout the sports industry. Athletic directors, coaches, and front office executives began implementing new protocols for player departures, recognizing that how transitions are handled can have lasting impacts on organizational culture and public perception. Sports psychologists weighed in on the emotional toll that unprofessional departures can take on remaining team members. Research showed that when valued teammates leave without proper communication or closure, it can create trust issues and anxiety that affect performance for months or even years afterward. The home team's experience became a case study in resilience and emotional recovery. The media coverage of this saga revealed interesting patterns in how different outlets approach the story. Traditional sports journalism focused primarily on the basketball aspects and statistical achievements, while newer digital platforms and social media influencers delved deeper into the interpersonal dynamics and character questions. This created a multi-layered narrative that appealed to different audience segments. Fan engagement reached unprecedented levels as supporters became invested not just in game outcomes, but in the broader questions of integrity and professionalism. Message boards exploded, with debates about loyalty versus individual ambition, with many fans sharing their own workplace experiences that paralleled the basketball drama. The story had transcended sports to become a cultural touchstone,